Welcome everyone to this Let's Play of Kerbal Space Program. Now you join Jeb and I on our way back to the Mun because we have some contracts to complete. Specifically, we need to land on the Mun and recover or transmit some science from there. We need to plant a flag, and we need to obviously land on the Mun to get that flag planted. Now I have a procedural fairing hiding away my payload, so let's just reveal that payload. There it is. There is the lander, Jeb's lovely lander, a little bit over-engineered, but it should work just fine. Now we are at just about 80 kilometers up. We have a target apoapsis of 100 kilometers. And at that point we're going to circularize as we usually do, but I have a new weapon in my arsenal. And that is a circularization script. It will create a node and then simulate pulling on the prograde handle in order to actually create the node. So there's no real sophisticated maths involved, which is just as well. So let's run our circ script. And while it's doing that, let's pop out to map mode and actually watch that node being created. You can also see here in precise node as that prograde handle gets pulled, out goes the predicted orbit, and there we go, a circular orbit if ever I've seen one. 199, that's perfectly good. And let's now run our familiar node script that will actually carry out the execution of that node. Now we've seen this somewhat before, so we will catch up with Jeb when that process is finished. Now with both scripts finished, we have periapsis 95, apoapsis 104. So not as perfectly round as it could have been, but perfectly good. Two perfectly good KOS scripts for doing some very basic activities. So another basic activity is to get ourselves to the Mun. So let's do that. Let's select the Mun as a target. And then round about here, let us create a maneuver node. Now we may just miss this maneuver node and have to go around one more orbit, but let's worry about that when the time comes. So let's just bring this maneuver node back. There we go. What's that? 193. 279. Move it in a little. 276, going the wrong way, so let's give it a little more delta V and move. Here we go. What's that? 304. $110, getting better. 52. 11. See if we can save a bit of delta V, move it around slightly. Somewhere in here. 58. Do you think that's good enough? It'll do for me. Right, well, looks like we still have a few minutes before the node arises, so let's run our script again, and I'll meet you at the Mun. Jeb has just arrived in the sphere of influence of the Mun. I've made a few adjustments to get our periapsis down to 23 kilometers, so let's just add a new maneuver node here. Now I've not yet done a capture KOS script, but it should just be more or less the same as the circularization script, but just the opposite way around, bringing the apoapsis down rather than the periapsis up. So that should be quite straightforward. But in the meantime, let's do it the traditional way, pulling on the retrograde handle and just wait for our apoapsis to flip. See how we're doing. Bringing it down. Almost there. There we go. So what's that? 23 and 22. That should be fine. So that's going to be a 42-second burn. Now we can use our node script again, so let's just bring that back up. Run the node script. It goes into its first of its waiting phases, waiting to align, but let's give it a bit of a hand. Here we go. There we are. We're more or less equatorial, a little bit of an inclination, but not a problem. We can deal with that on our way back to Kerbin. As long as we land back on Kerbin safely with all our science, our job will be done. So there we are. We've sort of pre-aligned, and we've got over an hour and 25 minutes to go. So let's just time warp forward, and then spend most of our time concentrating on the landing phase, because that's the thing we have not yet done in this save. We've not yet done a landing, so that's where we're going to test Jeb's skills. Right, so let's come out of time warp and allow KOS to complete the alignment phase. There we go. We pre-aligned already, so it shouldn't take much to align this relatively small craft. So it's going to be 42-second burn, so it'll be burning on around about the 21 T-minus 21. So let's just speed forward to that point. So 30. There we go, and let the KOS script complete the capture for us. There we go. Watch the mun below us. It's grey cratered surface below us, which we are about to go and investigate. There we go, so we've been captured. Go back to map mode. There we are, we've been captured. And down comes our apopsis. About halfway through our burn now. Hopefully we've brought plenty of fuel with us, plenty of batteries while we circularize here. I've bought every science instrument I could, crammed into these USI storage containers and modules. We have our transfer and landing stage here, and then a small return stage if we need it. So we shall see. Well, the program has ended. Let's go out into map view and just double check 22 and 23. That's excellent. Right, now we now have to decide where we're going to land, and I think we'll have a go at just landing here. So if we get ourselves lined up on our retrograde marker there, just use SAS to line us up and hit the engine. We'll just watch our orbit decay down to somewhere here. Now the mun is rotating, so we're probably going to land somewhere in this region here. So we're definitely going to land. Let's take a save and check out how we're going to go. Right, now I've highlighted altitude and distance for our suicide burn. Now there's absolutely no way I am good enough, and neither is Jeb, with me in control, of completing a suicide burn at this distance. Suicide burn, for those who don't know, is basically if you hammer the throttle at exactly 4.2 kilometers, you will touch down at exactly 0 meters per second. Yeah, I'm not going to try that, not at all. So we'll probably hit the throttle at about 6 or 7 kilometers. Now apparently we have 14 kilometers to travel before we arrive at that point, and we will need just under 240 meters per second, and we've got plenty in the current stage. We've got 1500 in the current stage with that LV 909 engine under there to do our thrust. So let's get our gear down so we are ready to go. So I'm going to give Jeb a few minutes to have a look around, and when he's ready to complete the landing, we'll check back in. Back with Jeb now. We can see we've got just under 2 kilometres of suicide burn with 5 kilometres above the terrain. So, to give us a little bit of a safety margin, given we've got plenty of fuel, I think now would be the time. So we need this to get down to less than 10 metres per second. Apparently we should be well within range for doing that because we're well above the suicide altitude. Let's just clear away KOS, we don't need that. Just about see the rocks on the surface. Hopefully we will land somewhere here in this flat section, which will help a lot. Help us, although we've got quite a few landing legs, so we should be relatively stable when we do touch down. So that is the advantage of this rather over-engineered craft. So down to 150 meters per second. Down to 100. Don't know what Jeb's looking so happy about, but we seem to be slowing down pretty rapidly now. So we're down to 30 meters per second. So let's start dropping the thrust. There we go. So we're still 500 meters above the surface, and we're now going pretty much straight down. There's our 10 meters per second target. So that worked out pretty well. We're coming down in a relatively undulating but otherwise flat terrain, no large boulders to worry about. Let's just bring up our thrust just a little bit. We're 250 meters above the surface. Down to 6 meters per second. So let's just control the throttle to keep us at a nice steady pace. There we are, just under 5 with 100 meters to go. Plenty of delta V in the current section, which is basically all of these feeder tanks into the section, the center section. So 4.5 meters per second. Let's just raise the throttle just a little bit. There we go, 2.5, 3. There we go, there's our shadow. Get ready to cut the throttle. And there we go. Bit more of a slope than I expected, but we are down safe. We are down safe. Well done, Jeb. It is now time to harvest all of our science. So we use Science Alert, and we've got quite a lot of science experiments crammed in here. We have temperature scan. There we go. See the module opening just there. That's going to be 32 science. Mystery goo. Which module is that? Is that round the other side? There we go. Mystery goo for 40. Materials study. Now this is a good one. Materials study is high value, 100 science. So we'll take 100 science. We'll do the atmospheric pressure scan. That's another 48 science. While we are still inside, we'll take the crew report for 20 science. We survey the vista, and as it spreads out before you, you munch on some snacks. Yes, well, we did bring plenty of snacks as well, so Jeb's going to be okay for snacks. And finally, we will do the EVA report. I say finally because that's the final part of the internal science. So let's keep that data, and let's store that data safely away. And while we remember, we can't reset any of these experiments, so we're just going to have to close all of these experiments. So let's take the pressure data, take the temperature data, and store that away. So at least we've safely stored the data, and let's deactivate that module. Why is that not closing? Oh, maybe we can't close it if we're not inside. Oh yes, you can't close it if you're not inside, so there we go. Close that experiment, and then close up these experiments as well. We don't want to lose them on our way back into the atmosphere. So we've done that. So let's get Jeb back out again on his EVA and get him to drop down onto the surface. Because if you remember from our experiments, we need to complete all the experiments, land on the Mun, which we've done, and then we need to transmit or recover that data. But we still need to plant the flag. So let's get down and plant the flag. So let's pop down. Here we go. Jeb popping down into the shadow of the lander with well, that's a rather nice view there. So let's get a flag plopped down right here while Jeb has a look up at that site. So let's just take a look at that for Gene back at Mission Control. So let's get our flag planted. Here we go. Kerbal Space Program flag planted. So this is Mun Lander 1. Excellent. So well planted there, Jeb. So let's get another selfie. And he can't take surface samples yet. He's not been trained to take surface samples. And to be honest, he's not been trained to get back up in the craft either without landing legs. So without further ado, we'll let Jeb have a bit of a wander around, have a few more snacks while he's surveying the vista. And when he's ready to take off, we'll be right back. Having completed his picnic, you can now see that we are ready to return. We've completed our plant the flag. We have achieved our orbit. We have recovered some data from orbit. We have landed on the Mun. We have now got to recover our science from the Mun. And we've completed the contract simply to arrive on the Mun. So let us get cracking. We need to get back. So let's get the SAS on and let's throttle up and away. So let's go in a generally easterly direction, roughly away from the direction we came. So let's get back up into orbit. So let's have a look where we are. Here we go. We are taking off from our landing site. You can just about make out. Can you make out our flag? No, we haven't got our flag symbols available. There we go. You can just about see our flag there. So we're now at 14. So we can make use of our circularization script again. So there we go. It grows our prograde bar. There we go. 394 meters per second. We have 600 left in this craft, or this stage of this craft. So let us run our node script again and get back into orbit. So let's get ourselves pre-aligned. There we go. With the small craft, it doesn't really make much difference. Larger, unwieldy craft tend to swing past the node and then oscillate back and forth. So it's always handy to get aligned as soon as possible. There we go. So we've now successfully aligned. It's now into its second stage, waiting for the burn, which is going to happen at around 20 seconds. So that's T-minus 20. So let's just accelerate towards that. Here we go. See the view as Jeb sees it. There we go. We've got to get back to Kerbin so we can see where we're going. And so we do appear to be going in the wrong direction, but we'll soon sort that out. Another selfie, I think. There we go. Something for Jeb's album. There's our landing site. Mun Lander 1 was here. About 2/3 of the way through circularization. 5 seconds of burn left. And there we are. So 17 and 16, that's fine. Right, now time to go home, Jeb. Now to get home, we basically want to go backwards along our orbit. So we basically want to accelerate in this direction. So let's get a maneuver node, plonk it down here, and just accelerate back along our orbit. like so. There we are. So we can see our predicted orbit, which is the purple orbit here. And let's just get hold of the maneuver node and just bring it back and forth and find the point at which the periapsis is at its lowest with the current delta V. It's going back out there. 2.5. 2.5. I think we're back out there. So this is about where we want to use our maneuver node, and now all we need to do is carry on accelerating in that direction until we get down below. It's going to be a bit hard to see. Until we get down below about 30. So let's just see. No, we can get it a little bit closer in now that we've got a bit more delta V. Going the wrong way. There we go. So what's that? 700. 500. 300. You can see that down here as well. Curbing periapsis here in precise node. So 250. There we go. 120. There we go. 89. 38. There we go, 26, a little bit deep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the prograde plus and minus just to get that up to about 28. There we go, 28. That would seem about right. So again, we can use our KOS node script, run that, and I'll see you back at Kerbin. Jeb landed not too far west of KSC, and he brought back a load of science. Now, we managed to pick up quite a bit of science as we orbited the Mun and on our way back, so there were some extra science experiments that we've collected some science from. So we now have 425 science. We didn't collect many parts. We actually lost our lander stage. We did actually need that final return stage just for a little dribble of delta V. And obviously we recovered Jebediah. 3 XP, well done. And of course we've also got all of these contracts completed. We landed on the Mun. We explored the Mun. We still had those 2 parts left of that Mun contract. We planted our flag. We explored the Mun, and this was the sub part. We returned the science from the surface, so that's great. And so we've successfully explored the Mun, and we got an awful lot of funds to go with our awful lot of science. So we're going to pop into the R&D centre and see what we can do with all that science, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.